We are now at a point of, escalating chaos in the Middle East. We, of course, tracked last week how Israel was able to blow up the pagers and then the walkie-talkies of a lot of Hezbollah members. And then, there was huge collateral damage. There were children who were killed. People were in public marketplaces, et cetera. Then they started the out-and-out bombing campaign. And now we are getting incredibly deeply disturbing indications that Israel plans an all-out assault on at least a portion of Lebanon, somewhat akin to what has already been done to Gaza. Here is Army Chief of Staff Daniel Hagari effectively threatening all of the civilians, building the case that inside of homes and other civilian infrastructure in Lebanon, that these are legitimate military targets. Again, sounds very familiar to the case that was made in Gaza in order to justify blowing up homes, schools, hospitals, mosques, and everything in between. Let's take a listen to a bit of what he had to say.
About an hour ago, following indications that Hezbollah was preparing to fire towards Israeli territory, we began striking terrorist targets throughout Lebanon. The Hezbollah terrorist organization has been continuously launching attacks on Israeli civilians and has no plans to stop. This is southern Lebanon. There are dozens of Lebanese villages situated along approximately 80 kilometers of the border with Israel. For over 20 years, Hezbollah has deployed its arms inside homes and militarized civilian infrastructure. As a result, the Hezbollah terrorist organization has turned southern Lebanon into a battlefield. This is a village in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah stores cruise missiles, rockets, launchers, and UAVs inside civilian homes, hidden behind the Lebanese population living in the village. We are monitoring these activities, locating the weapons, and destroying them with precise intelligence-based strikes.
And sure enough, this morning, I'm looking at the New York Times right now, you've got, they say, scores, at least 100 people killed in southern Lebanon after Israel has begun a massive bombardment. We have some images from over the weekend that show you the size and the scale of this military operation. I mean, this is a huge blast that's depicted here. And we also have some images of a residential apartment building that was utterly demolished and leveled in this bombing campaign. According to reports over the weekend, they pummeled southern Lebanon with strikes on about 400 different targets. Hezbollah is responding with some rocket attacks as well, although largely theirs have been disrupted by the Iron Dome missile defense system. So, effectively they're threatening to do in Lebanon what they did in Gaza. Civilians have been told to evacuate the area. And the rhetoric that is being used is deeply disturbing. Let's put this next piece up on the screen. This is a voiceover. I'll just give you a sense of what the Israeli education minister is saying on, this is Channel 14. This is sort of like their Fox News-ish propaganda channel. He says, quote, "There's no difference between Hezbollah and Lebanon. Lebanon will be annihilated. It will cease to exist." Again, this isn't some random fringe figure. This is an Israeli minister, member of the government. How did we get to this place of fresh horror? Well, let's put the next piece up on the screen. Biden administration, they're extremely concerned about this risk of all-out war, but are they going to do anything? No. Israeli officials are telling them that their increasing attacks against Hezbollah are not intended to lead to war, but are an attempt to reach de-escalation through escalation. Obviously, that is the most preposterous, from an Axios report, by the way. This is the most preposterous idea you could possibly imagine. Hezbollah was not involved in the October 7th attacks. They've made it very clear that if there is a ceasefire deal that, ends the hostilities and returns the hostages, that their bombardment, the rockets that they've been firing into northern Israel would stop. And yet, because of Bibi's determination from the beginning to broaden this war and the Biden administration's failure to stop it by using any sort of leverage, here we are with the region just continuing to spiral, Saagar.
Yeah, it's actually very terrifying. I mean, this is probably the closest that we are just yet. Now, currently, as of this morning, it just says we don't have an official number of what the death toll. I do love all of this de-escalation through escalation. Anytime anybody is selling you that, they are selling you a bridge. And that currently, I mean, really what stands out to me is the complete vacuum of U.S. leadership. Our president is literally dementia-ridden, unable to accomplish anything in the Middle East. Our Secretary of State is effectively a nobody throughout this entire thing. Israel did not clear any of its pager gambit with the United States, with its intelligence. Lebanon currently and Hezbollah are responding in whatever the way they see fit. The Iranians are very involved, and the Israelis are just doing whatever they want to do. There are no checks on this entire system.
No.
And we are the ones who are going to pay the bill. Like, let's all be very clear about what this means. Who do you think funds Iron Dome? Us. Who do you think responded to those Iran attacks? Us. Whose aircraft carriers are the ones that are securing any piece, whatever is left in the region? Us. If this goes big, Israel will suffer dramatic. I'm not saying they won't win. They probably will because they have a lot more firepower, but the amount of casualties they will suffer in a war with Hezbollah will be 10 to 100 times what they experienced in Gaza. Hezbollah is a very sharpened paramilitary force. They have much more Iranian backing. They have much better and sophisticated technology, as evidenced by the fact they've been penetrated Iron Dome. And they've got more regional actors and others on their side with as evidenced by the fact that the Israelis take them much more seriously, and the 2006 war still as a very black mark on the IDF that they've have always had to deal with for the domestic populace and its confidence in its military. So you can be rest assured, not only would we have to spend a ton more money, the likelihood of us getting involved here, I think would be almost tenfold relative to what happened with Gaza. And that is something that I'm genuinely terrified by, because if they're running out of weapons, just dropping JDAMs on a civilian population with no ability to shoot back, what does it look like whenever you actually have to fire? Not a pure military, but definitely a much more respectable fighting force. That is something I worry a lot about.
So Haaretz estimates that there have been 182 killed in Lebanon in these new attacks and hundreds wounded. In retaliation, you now had 35 rockets fired by Hezbollah at military targets in Israel's north. Again, this mostly was intercepted by the missile defense system Iron Dome, so I don't know that there were any Israeli deaths. But at the same time, we can't lose sight of the offensive in Gaza continues. They just bombed a school turned shelter with dozens killed there as well. They're floating a new plan to, once again, fully evacuate Gaza City, which, if you guys will recall, we're almost a year. We've almost come to the year anniversary. And back at the beginning of their onslaught, Gaza City was the first target. Everyone was forced to evacuate. Then they, slowly moved south and destroyed everything in the entire Gaza Strip. Now you have some people who've come back north, and now they're threatening to evacuate them all again and say, oh, if you don't leave, then you're a legitimate military target and we're going to kill everyone who remains. This is what's being floated right now. So it's just so dark that the Biden administration has completely given up on a ceasefire. There's not even a prospect on the table anymore. Bibi has sustained at this point. He's much more popular now. I mean, he's recovered his popularity at this point, and seems to have withstood the continued protest movement. I'm not saying that there aren't still protests that are quite heated, ongoing, but he seems to have withstood a lot of that. And there's just no end in sight. There is no peaceful coexistence anywhere in sight. And we have spent a lot of time here talking about a potential day after, quote unquote, and what day after? There is no day after. This is the plan. Like, what we're looking at is just continued bombing, continued bombardment, continued slaughter, all of that. It's just indefinite, in perpetuity. That, as far as I can see, is the plan. To have no day after, that is the plan. And obviously, the Israelis the Israeli government bears responsibility for the war crimes that they have committed, but we also bear a lot of responsibility. We're the ones that our tax dollars are going to ship these weapons that are being dropped now on civilians in Lebanon and being dropped in Gaza, and the West Bank has been invaded as well. And our political leadership has just decided that it's too hard to force Israel to stop, so they're just going to allow it to keep going.
Yeah, I read now. The U.S. has directly warned Israel against opening a full-blown war with Hezbollah. This is from the Financial Times.
I mean,
warned them
they already, like, it's already over. It's
Yeah,
done.
exactly.
The full-blown war is here. Now, we don't have a ground invasion yet,
Yes, hopefully. Yeah.
but, and that just, again, from the beginning, post-October 7th, one of the very early on and consistently stated objectives of the Biden administration was to keep this from spiraling in a wider war. Now, it's been a wider war for quite a while now, but this is another big, big step. Your policy failed. Like, you are a complete and utter failure on a moral level, on American strategic interest level, on a just like level of humiliation and impotence. You are a total and complete failure. And now apparently you've just given up. You know, we're never going to get anything more than those like, oh, he's spoken difficult. Yeah, he had a tough conversation with baby. Who fucking cares? Like, who cares? It obviously does not matter. And then at a certain point you have to say, like, if the strategy has been deployed consistently over all these months and you know the result it's going to get, then at some point you're like, okay, well, you're just lying that you have a different objective than Bibi. You have to be, because you can't be so stupid as to not expect exactly the result that we're getting here. So it's incredibly dark. It's incredibly dark. And I think from the side of the of Hamas, of Sinwar et al., they feel like they are willing to bear the cost of tens of thousands of Palestinians who have now been killed, potentially even up to 100,000 who have been killed according to some estimates, buried under the rubble, life made unlivable, you get communicable diseases, all the rest. And they think they can outlast the Israelis, and that, if there's enough of a security, they've sort of breached the security status quo in Israel where they no longer feel safe, and they believe that they can sort of outlast the Israelis. And it's like, it's just death and horror as far as you can see. That's unfortunately the grim picture we have this morning.
Yep. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate it. We'll keep everybody updated. As a reminder, we've got that exclusive election content for our premium subscribers, breakingpoints.com. Otherwise, we'll see you all tomorrow.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.